AI-powered Shark Tank pitch analysis for Gum and Gums by Hassan Kashif, by tenGEN AI by Tensorminds Private Limited. All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and today we're heading over to, well, Shark Tank Pakistan. Yeah, you heard that right. We're going international this time. We're going to be analyzing this entrepreneur, Hassan Kashif. And he's pitching this product called Dr. Floss. And he's looking for 7 million Pakistani rupees. That's about 20,000 US dollars for a 10% stake in his company. So what's interesting here, right, is that Kashif, well, he's already raised 10 million rupees, but he doesn't have any sales to show for it yet. And so the question is, can he convince these sharks, these investors, that Dr. Floss is worth that risk? And more importantly, what can all of you learn from his experience? To help us unpack all of this, we've got an expert here who's, well, let's just say they've seen a lot of pitches, and they know what makes investors open up those wallets.
Yeah, I'm excited to break this one down. You know, from the moment Kashif steps into the studio, you can just feel the energy. You know, this really sleek design, these like bold colors you see in the studio. It just screams high stakes.
Yeah, and don't forget about the sharks he's facing. You got Usman Bashir, he's the CEO of BTCM, Faisal Aftab, founder of Zain VC, and then there's Romana Dadar, she's a founder and investor herself, and last but not least, Junaid Iqbal, who leads Salt Ventures. So, you know, these are some seriously accomplished folks, and they're definitely ready to invest, but they're also super picky. And our sources tell us they're kind of intrigued by Dr. Floss, but that missing sales data, that's a red flag for them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So Kashif kicks things off by talking at this huge problem, dental diseases, right? He points out that over 2.3 billion people globally suffer from them, and that cavities are especially bad in Pakistan, affecting like 80% of the kids there.
Okay, so that's a smart way to start, you know?
Yeah.
You grab their attention with a big problem, and then you set the stage for your solution.
Exactly. And that solution is Dr. Floss, right? It's this single button water jet flosser, and it's all about making flossing easier, more effective. Plus, Kashif says the global floss market is, get this, going to hit $4.9 billion by 2025.
Ah, yes, the classic big market strategy. But the question is, how reliable is that data? That's what the sharks are probably thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can just, you know, throw out these big numbers, but real investors, they want to see the proof.
The receipts.
Exactly.
Okay, so big problem, big market. What about the competition? Kashif says Dr. Floss uses patented technology, which makes it stand out from, you know, your typical floss.
Patented technology, huh? That's a phrase that always makes investors a little wary, you know?
Yeah, why is that?
Well, it can be a little misleading. I mean, what exactly is patented? Is it the way it works, like the function of the flosser? Or is it just the way it looks, you know, the design? And then there's the question of how strong that patent actually is. Could a competitor, you know, easily work around it? These are the things that are probably going through the sharks' minds.
So just saying patented isn't enough. You got to show why that patent actually gives you an advantage, right?
Absolutely.
So to kind of beef up his argument, Kashif mentions these partnerships Dr. Floss has with some big-name dental schools, Columbia, Rutgers, and NYU. And apparently, these schools are working on publishing research papers about how well Dr. Floss works.
Okay, now that's a smart move. Getting those kind of third-party endorsements, especially from well-respected institutions, it can be really convincing. It adds this level of credibility that can really sway investors who are on the fence.
So we've got the problem, the solution, the market size, and some hints at a competitive edge. Now let's get down to brass tacks. Kashif's asking for 7 million PKR for a 10% stake, which means he's valuing his company at 70 million. But remember, he's already raised 10 million, and this is key, he has zero revenue.
And there it is, the big red flag for investors, pre-revenue. I mean, this company hasn't actually sold anything yet. And for investors, that's a major risk. They want proof that people are actually willing to buy the product, not just that it has potential.
So naturally, the sharks start peppering Kashif with questions. Why haven't you tested the market? How did you spend that initial 10 million? How are you going to compete with the big guys like Colgate and Oral-B?
Classic Shark Tank, right? They're not trying to be mean. They're trying to gauge how prepared he is, how well he knows his business.
You can practically cut the tension with a knife.
Oh, for sure. You've got Kashif's enthusiasm on one side, and then the shark's skepticism on the other. Makes for good TD, that's for sure.
Absolutely. But you know what? A little skepticism is actually a good thing, right? It forces everyone to really think critically.
Yeah, I agree. It keeps everyone honest.
Okay, so we've set the stage, we've met the sharks, we've looked at the problem, the solution, and what Kashif's asking for. But what does all this mean for his pitch?
Well, he's definitely identified a big problem, and he's come up with a potentially innovative solution. But he's also facing some pretty serious challenges, starting with that lack of market validation.
That's right. He's asking for a lot of money based on, well, basically potential, not actual results. So let's dive into those weaknesses, shall we? Let's see what he could have done differently and figure out what we can all learn from his experience. Stick with us. We'll be right back after the break. We're back. And, we were just talking about Kashif's, his big ask, right? He wants to secure that funding for Dr. Floss. But those sharks, they weren't exactly throwing money at him, were they?
No, not really. I mean, think about it. You're pitching this product you truly believe in, but you don't have those sales figures to back it up. It's a tough spot to be in.
It is. So let's really break down the weaknesses of his pitch here, and maybe see what he could have done differently.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that jumps out is that lack of market validation, right? He's asking for this big chunk of change based mostly on the potential of Dr. Floss, but he hasn't really shown that people are actually buying it.
Yeah, he keeps mentioning this huge global market, but it seems like the sharks are more interested in like the here and now. Like, will people actually pull out their wallets for this thing?
Exactly. Remember that 10 million rupees he already raised. Instead of just relying on projections and promises, he could have used some of that money to do a market test.
Oh, interesting. So instead of just talking about how great Dr. Floss could be, he could have actually gotten some real-world feedback.
Exactly. He could have gone to some dental practices, maybe run a small online campaign just to see what the initial interest is like.
Yeah, and that data, that would have been gold for his pitch.
Oh, absolutely. It would have shown the sharks that he's, proactive, data-driven, that he's willing to test his assumptions, and it might have eased their worries about investing in a company with no revenue.
Because at the end of the day, data speaks louder than words, right?
Especially for investors who are used to seeing results.
Okay, so market validation, big one. What else could Kashif have done better?
Well, he could have done a better job of explaining the competition. I mean, he mentioned the patented technology, but he didn't really spell out what makes Dr. Floss truly unique. What sets it apart from other water flossers that are already out there.
Right, so it's not enough to just say you're different. You got to explain why that difference actually matters.
Exactly. Like, is Dr. Floss easier to use? Does it clean better? Is it cheaper? Does that patent technology solve a problem that other flossers don't? He needed to really hammer home those key points.
Make it crystal clear why Dr. Floss is the better choice.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that make a product stand out, what about those partnerships with the dental schools? Those seemed like a good thing, right?
Oh, they definitely could be. I mean, having those institutions doing research on Dr. Floss, that adds a ton of credibility. And it could lead to, dentists recommending the product to their patients.
So Kashif could have played that up more, highlighted how those partnerships would not only validate the product, but also help him get the word out.
Exactly. It would show that he's thinking about marketing too.
Yeah.
Not just the product itself.
Okay, so we've talked about market validation, competition, but there's another thing the sharks seemed worried about: manufacturing and scalability. They weren't so sure about his ability to actually produce and distribute Dr. Floss on a large scale.
Right. His pitch was kind of light on the operational details. To address that, he could have given a quick overview of his manufacturing plant.
Like, does he have a manufacturer lined up? How much does it cost to make each unit? Can he ramp up production quickly if demand takes off?
Investors want to know that you've thought about those things. It's not just about having a cool idea. It's about having a plan to actually bring it to market.
So it's a balance, right? You need the creativity to come up with the product, but you also need the business smarts to figure out how to make it, sell it, all that.
Yeah, it's both sides of the coin.
Okay, so we've looked at Kashif's pitch, the good and the bad. But let's not forget about the sharks themselves. I mean, they've been doing this for a while. They've seen it all. So what can we learn from them?
Well, their focus on real-world data is a big one. They weren't just impressed by Kashif's, passion or his vision. They wanted to see the numbers, the proof.
It's a good reminder that enthusiasm is important, but you got to back it up with data.
Absolutely.
And what about those tough questions they kept asking? It felt like they were grilling him at times.
Yeah, but that's part of the process. Those questions they're designed to test you to see how well you know your stuff.
So instead of being afraid of those questions, entrepreneurs should see them as a chance to really shine.
Exactly. It's an opportunity to show off your expertise, your passion.
This has been so insightful. I mean, we've really dissected Kashif's Shark Tank experience here. We've looked at the strength, the weaknesses of his pitch, and we've even gotten some great advice from the sharks themselves.
Yeah, it's been a great learning experience.
Now, I know we've covered a lot, but our deep dive isn't quite over yet. We're going to wrap things up in our final segment with some key lessons for all you aspiring entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, some things to really take to heart.
So, stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into, Hasan Kashif's journey on Shark Tank Pakistan. You know, we've really gone through his pitch with a fine-tooth comb, looked at what worked, what didn't, and I think we even learned a thing or two from those sharks.
Yeah, it's been pretty insightful, hasn't it? And, you know, what's amazing is how much we can take away from Kashif's experience. Whether you're, a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out thinking about your own business ideas.
Totally. So let's try to sum up some of the key takeaways here.
Yeah.
What are the big lessons you think our listeners should really remember?
Well, first and foremost, you got to validate, validate, validate. Don't just assume your product is going to be a hit, right? Get out there and prove it.
Get that data, test those assumptions. Exactly. And remember, those tough questions the investors were asking, those are actually a good thing.
Oh, yeah, I remember you saying that.
They're a chance to really show what you know, to prove you've thought things through.
Yeah, don't shy away from those questions. Embrace them.
Exactly.
Okay, and what about being honest about your weaknesses? I mean, nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah. And investors know that. In fact, they appreciate it when you're upfront about the challenges you're facing.
It shows you're self-aware.
Yeah, and that you have a plan to overcome those hurdles.
So let's bring it back to our listeners. What can they learn from Kashif's Shark Tank experience and apply to their own journey?
It all comes down to preparation, validation, and resilience.
Those are some powerful words.
Be prepared for those tough questions. Back up your claims with data. And never give up on your vision, even when things get tough.
Because, let's face it, being an entrepreneur it's not always smooth sailing.
Oh, absolutely not. There will be bumps in the road.
But it's how you handle those bumps that really matters.
Exactly. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with this. Think about a product or service you're passionate about. Something that could, solve a problem, make the world a little bit better.
Okay, yeah, I've got something in mind.
Now, picture yourself on that Shark Tank stage. The lights, the cameras, those intense sharks staring you down. And you've got just a few minutes to convince them to invest in your dream. How would you do it?
Wow, that's a great exercise.
It makes you really think about your idea, your audience, your competition.
And how to tell your story in a way that really connects.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the numbers. It's about the passion, the belief, the vision.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored the world of business pitches, learned from a real entrepreneur's experience, and hopefully, spark some ideas in our listeners.
Yeah, and remember, the learning never stops. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep pushing those boundaries.
Until next time, keep diving deep. AI-powered content, audio and video creation by tenGEN AI by Tensorminds Private Limited. Thank you for listening.